Today, and today only, we are going to solve the mystery of bugging out versus bugging in. You're darn right I'm in my pajamas having my coffee because it's gotten that serious. So grab your coffee, your whiskey, your kombucha, or whatever it is that you drink because we're going to have a discussion. I really feel like before we can even discuss bugging out versus bugging in, we need to understand the genesis, the origin story of bugging out. Now, the best guess estimate for the origin of bugging out comes from possibly World War II, and then it was used, all the time by the Korean War, and then in the 50s, maybe the mid to late 50s, it actually became kind of like civilian mainstream slang. From my research, it was perpetuated by this cartoon of a boot coming down and all of the bugs scattering as the boot came down. Obviously, these cartoons were metaphors and politically driven in regards to war. So, when the boot comes down, you better be ready. When the boot comes down. I think in order to understand what it really means, I need to tell you a story. And I'm not going to be patronizing or berating or condescending. It's just going to be in plain English. So if you have, not been in the military, then you would understand what it really means. Okay, so when people join the military, they join a branch of the military, and you probably don't understand how they divide up their branches, right, into battalions or platoons, units, etc. And that's okay. The best way that I can explain that to you is you probably live in a home and you have your family and your friends, and then you have your community, etc. It's the same kind of thing. Now, typically in the military, a small group of people, a unit, will be given a mission while they are at home base, and they will have to go out into the field in order to fulfill the mission. Now, when they're on that mission, understand they can come under enemy fire. That position has now been compromised, and death could be imminent. The boot is coming down. Now, if they were smart prior to going on the mission, they would have already planned out their bug out routes. And along those routes, they would have survival caches. Now, in order to understand the need for a cache, you have to understand what happens when the boot comes down. Priority number one is don't die. Priority number two is to drop all non-essential gear and de-ass the area as fast as you can. Now, while you're on your route, it is also possible that you will draw enemy fire when you are trying to get out of there. And that means two things. Number one, you need caches so that you can resupply things like ammunition or water. And number two, if you have to change course, you have to shuck and jive when you're in the field, then you have a contingency plan. In other words, you have multiple routes to get to your destination, which is a place of safety that has resources and friendlies or people. And maybe now that you understand the origin of it and how the military uses it, you can apply it to your own life. Now, in order to do that, we have to understand statistic probabilities. And the best way that I can divide that up for you is dividing it into acts of God versus acts of man. So now you may be asking, okay, what define acts of God? Acts of God may include, but not limited to, fire, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, etc. Now let's talk acts of man. I'll go with the worst first, like the zombie apocalypse, foreign troops on U.S. soil, an EMP that got detonated in the air or maybe on the ground. Statistically speaking, you are far more likely to experience an act of God than you are an act of man. Anybody who's been in the military, law enforcement, or a first responder will tell you all of the training is based on statistical probabilities. And we always prepare for the worst case scenario and we hope for the best. Number one thing that I heard in the field was, I never thought this would happen to me. As you can imagine, this changes their perspective and how they prepare. In the comments section, I typically see comments like, why should I prepare at this level? Why should I prepare for this extreme? Now, the answer is extremely simple. It's because you are developing good habits. This may sound strange to you, but I'm going to try to put it into terms that you can understand. When you add enough stress to any scenario, it's like a switch goes off and that person is no longer the person that you knew. I'm more than sure that you have somebody in your life, if they drink enough alcohol or a specific type of alcohol, it's like the switch goes off and you don't even know them. This phenomenon happens in high stress events like combat, mass casualty, disaster scenes, active shooter. If you place enough stress on somebody, eventually they lose their minds for real. And the idea behind training for these events is, okay, if you establish good habits here that become muscle memory, the hope is that you will pull from those experiences so that you can pull yourself out of it. Now, anybody in those arenas that trains for these scenarios knows that eventually you're not going to be able to reason dispassionately. I think that people, when they're watching videos on bugging out, they think that they're going to have like their full faculties when the SHTF scenario takes place. Surprise, you're not. Another thing that takes place is when you train at that high of a level, when you prepare for the worst, well, if the worst happens, then guess what? It's gravy train rolling. Everything just becomes a little bit easier. Now let's take our newfound knowledge and let's apply it to our lives. Okay, so you live at home, right? And every now and then a mission comes along. Maybe it's going to the store for supplies, dropping the kids off at school, buying useless stuff you don't need, entertaining yourself, visiting relatives, or whatever the case may be. You do have missions and you do leave home. Now, statistically speaking, you are far more likely to experience the devastation associated with some kind of natural disaster before there's foreign troops on American soil. And these things happen all the time. You may not be aware of it because maybe you didn't watch the news that day, or you weren't on social media, or you don't read the paper, or whatever the case may be. Accidents and disasters happen every day, all over the place. Now, common sense would tell you that, okay, you need to be prepared for as much as you possibly can be when the event takes place. But it's not just about you. It's about other people as well. And I'll give you a good example of that. I have a friend, I get a phone call. It's during an ice storm. He's out with his wife, his newborn baby, and his two children. And he's a prepared minded kind of guy, right? He has an actual go bag, which is in the trunk of his Honda Accord. The problem is they're running out of fuel and they are 6 miles from home. Unfortunately, at the time, he didn't have enough supplies to outfit everybody in the car. You can only imagine how bad he felt when he called me. Now, what we did was I calmed him down, number one. Number two, he did have some supplies with him, and he also had the vehicle. What that means in a survival scenario is that you might potentially have to tear your car up. And this is why we have insurance. Maybe you need the foam or the fabric, or you need wiring, or whatever it is that you need. The car is not worth the value of your life and the ones that you love. That is a resource. Now, he made it home with his family. Thank God. But understand, for them, that was a true survival scenario. And on top of that, they were bugging out. They're leaving a position, right, where they could die. The baby could die. The children could die. The wife was actually in flip-flops. This is not the kind of gear that you need in order to get home. But sometimes extreme scenarios require extreme responses. In their case, they were leaving a compromised area in order to get to a position of safety, which was their home. One thing that I tried to figure out during that time is, okay, who in our network is on the way home? Is there a place that you can stop where you can get the things that you need, warm your family up, potentially get a ride, or if you have to pedal it all the way to the house? It doesn't matter if you buried the cash, right? Or if you stop off at somebody's house. That is a place that you can regroup, that you can get the supplies that you need so that you can resupply and get to a position of safety, your home. Another scenario could be you're at work and a tornado goes off and you survive the tornado, but you have to get home. Now, these are the kinds of scenarios that we try to, play out for you in adventure videos here on this channel. Now, we use the term bugging out because, okay, you are leaving a place that is compromised to try to get to a position of safety, which is at home where your family is. That, by definition, is bugging out. You can go on and on with this, and I think that you understand where I'm coming from because I want to kind of move on. I want to talk about hypothetical scenarios. The majority of what you see on YouTube videos, adventure videos, is a hypothetical scenario. Unfortunately, what happens is the keyboard commandos get on there and they typically are part of the problem rather than part of the solution. They may, create a timestamp in the video and they may say something like, Jay, you violated the sound discipline aspect of your bug out. Duh, I was talking to the camera the entire time. If I was bugging out for real, I'm not going to be talking to the camera. Still, others may come on, and the reality of the scenario is maybe they didn't watch the videos that led up in a series to the video that they actually watched. It may also be that they just didn't watch the entire video. Or maybe they missed a part of the video because their kid was screaming, or someone rang the doorbell. They had to go to the bathroom, whatever the case may be. They missed the little bit of information that they needed, and they went ahead and they made a derogatory comment. Normally, the way that I handle keyboard commandos is if they make a derogatory comment, I usually say, can't we just be friends? Do you need a hug? I don't actually get in there and attack them. The reason for that is because there's two kinds of people in this world. You have those that put people down so they can feel better about themselves, and then you have others that are trying to bring everybody with them to bring them up. And so the question I have for you is, number one, which type of person are you? And number two, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? I would wager to say that the majority of people that make negative comments when it comes to bugging out versus bugging in, they've probably never been in combat. They've probably never been to a mass casualty. They've probably more than likely never been to a disaster scene, and they've probably not been in an active shooter. This may surprise you, but I am human. I haven't been in every single scenario across the board, but I have seen a lot of doo-doo. Watch my mouth. I did good that time. I deserve a quarter. I have seen a lot, and I've been around people that have been through a lot. And all we're doing, okay, is we're simply trying to create critical thinking moments for you where you can say, oh yeah, that might could happen to me. If it did happen to me, what would I do? I love it when people get on there and say, hey, good job, great video, love the idea, keep them coming, fuel the fires. I love that stuff. But something else that I love is when I learn something from the audience. This is a community, right, of like-minded individuals. And our job is to learn from each other. The best stuff happens in the comment section, no doubt. I enjoy reading the comments maybe more than y'all enjoy actually watching the videos. And I try to take a lot of what I learn and I try to implement it into future videos as well. So, someone comes up with a good idea. I mean, come on, I'm going to share it. I mean, that's the whole reason that we're here. People are concerned about the state of affairs in the world. I get asked a lot of times, like, why would you train at this level? What is the likelihood of something this extreme happening on U.S. soil? And I always say, look what's happening around you. What about the recent events in Israel, for example? That place has been at war for as long as we can remember and as long as we have been recording information. Understand that if it can happen there, it can happen to you too. Still, others will hop on there and they will say, yeah, right. So, when do you think this is going to pop off? Look, I'm not a prophet. I don't have all the answers. People say, history repeats itself. Okay, if you subscribe to that way of thinking, then somewhere around 2028, there's going to be a war. Okay, because we're really good at recognizing patterns. 80 years prior to 2028, well, there was World War II. 80 years prior to that, Civil War. 80 years prior to that, Revolutionary War, and on and on and on. You can study this like once in a generation. And I mean, there's been books written about it. You could read The Fourth Turning, for example. Am I saying that there's going to be a major event that is going to change the face of the planet in 2028? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it could happen, but what I'm going to focus on are the things that I can control. There are things out there you can't control. And a lot of people are control freaks. They can't stand this, right? No. When the SHTF happens, I'm staying at home. Well, what if the boot is coming down on your house? That's when it's time to go. I'm trying to say, it's very simple. If you're in a place that is compromised and the boot is coming down, it's time to get out of there. And that could be anywhere. You may say, okay, but it just seems like a lot of the training is extreme. Okay, here's the deal. There are all kind of tips, tricks, and hacks that you can pull out of these videos, which you can apply to your everyday life. Maybe it's about mindset. Maybe it's just about being a little bit more prepared, right? Like you go somewhere and you pull out your first aid kit because Johnny got a boo-boo. Okay, you just solved the problem. Now you're a problem solver. Maybe you like that feeling of being the go-to person. So now, you're outfitting your vehicle. You're worried about what's in your EDC. You start prepping at home. You can take it to whatever level you want to. You don't have to do the most extreme thing here. There are things that you can take from these videos that will make you a better hunter, okay, when it comes to stealth, when it comes to understanding the animal patterns around you. Things that you learn can help you when you're hiking as far as self-defense and situational awareness. Maybe you just have fun going camping with your family, practicing a new skill set. The biggest thing that I tell people when it comes to preparing for, bugging out or bugging in, stealth camping, SHTF scenarios, whatever, what have you lost by doing it? As a first responder, we say emergency waits for no man. An emergency on your part doesn't constitute one on mine, and do no harm. And that's spelled K-N-O-W, not N-O. Truth of the matter is that when an emergency takes place, you are responsible. You can't always wait on somebody to come and help you. I think that by and large, this is the kind of knowledge that it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And it's my job as a content creator sometimes to, help you understand the terms that we're using when we're speaking in videos. Bugging out doesn't always mean that you are going to leave your home with all of your possessions on your back and you're never coming home. I think that everybody's like obsessed with this romantic idea that, it's going to happen. The sky is falling. It's the end of the world, and we're all going to live on the set of The Walking Dead. And you better hope and pray that that never happens. But if it does, hopefully you have an understanding of what bugging out truly is, and you can make an intelligent decision on whether you are going to bug in or you're going to bug out.